Right, good morning everybody, and welcome to Children's Scrutiny Panel. It's Tuesday the 4th of February and 10:30. My name is Itrat Ali. I'll be chairing the meeting today, supported by Helen. So before we start, if I could ask the members in the room to introduce themselves. So we've got the panel members, and can I ask you to use your mic as well, please?
Hi, I'm Councillor McKirker from Denberdale Ward.
Good morning, I'm Jane Ryler from Home Valley South Ward.
I think we've got one of the panellists online as well. Councillor Smith, could you introduce yourself?
Morning, Councillor Richard Smith from Kirklees Ward, thank you.
And officers in the room, if I could ask you to introduce yourselves too.
Good morning, I'm Joanne Sanders. I'm Service Director for Learning and Early Support.
Good morning, I'm Michelle Lister, Head of Service for Early Support and the SENDAC team.
Good morning, I'm Emma Brayford, Senior Learning Partner for our Kirklees schools and settings.
Claire Gardiner, Democracy Officer.
Morning everyone, Emma Salter, Kirklees Sacre.
Morning everyone, Ian Ross, Kirklees Sacre.
And Mark James, Kirklees Sacre.
Thank you. And on Teams we have Vicky and Joel, if you want to introduce yourselves.
Hi, Vicky Medbringham, Service Director, Family Support and Child Protection for Kirklees Council.
Hello, I'm Joel Hannah. I'm the Head of Service and I'm responsible for corporate parenting in Kirklees for looked after children and care leavers.
Hi, I'm Helen Kilroy. I'm the Assistant Democracy Manager in the Governance team. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. We've got apologies from a panel member, Councillor Ashley Robinson and Councillor Tanisha Bramwell, who is delayed, has been stuck in traffic with a breakdown. We've also got apologies from the two cabinet members, Councillor Kendrick and Councillor Pinnock. So, item number 2, minutes of the previous meeting. I propose the minutes of the meeting as of page 1 and 10. Have we got a seconder for that?
Yeah, I'm happy to second.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor McKirker. Item number 3, declaration of interest. Any interest to declare?
Yes, I declare an interest as Vice Chair of Sacre.
Thank you, Councillor McKirker. Item number 4, admission of the public. The meeting will be recorded and in public. Item number 5, deputations and petitions, none received today. Item number 6, no public questions, none received today. So we move swiftly on to item number 7, the Standing Advisory Council for Religious Education, SACRA, annual report. So I'd like to ask Emma Brayford to do a brief introduction to the report.
Thank you, Chair. On an annual basis, we have a statutory duty within the local authority to ensure that there is a standing advisory council for religious education that's well maintained within our area. On a number of looking back over a number of years, it's been really important that we ensure that we reflect on the progress that's been made as part of that SACRE, and as such we work with our educational SACRE advisor Ian Ross, but also the SACRE committee chaired currently by Mark, who reflect on the work of the SACRE groups and also give us recommendations to support our work with our schools and settings moving forward. I'd like to introduce Mark, who will take you through some of the key points in the report, and then we'll be welcome to take questions from yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. Over to Mark.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Emma. for the introduction. SACRE has met during the year. Our meetings are formed from a panel that includes members of faith communities within Kirklees, counsellors, teachers, and we meet together, and we have 5 overall responsibilities within the borough for SACRE. So we produced the agreed syllabus, which was relaunched last year on a 5-year cycle. And we also monitor the provision of RE within Kirklees and collective worship and seek to support the provision for RE. We have really good teacher conferences that enable teachers to do that. We also are responsible for determination when a parent requests that their child would be withdrawn from RE. So we're really pleased to present the report to you for the coming year. And if I could just touch briefly on for the year gone by, touch briefly on our priorities that we've sought to pursue in the last year. So we've continued to revise the locally agreed syllabus and provide support for teachers in using that syllabus as a platform for children's learning. Our syllabus is built around 6 big ideas in RE, and they offer pathways that children follow through the whole of their education, exploring those big ideas in relationship to faith. And that's compliant with the new non-statutory guidance from the RE Council, which is called the National Content Standard. The locally agreed syllabus conference happened on the 12th of March, and the borough was represented there by officers from the council. And the launch and training event included 100 teachers and head teachers, which happened on the 18th of April. We have been working also to introduce a new inclusive collective worship award for schools, to continue working with school improvement partners to identify schools for support and professional conversations. And we're really pleased that Honley School, Crossley Fields Primary School and Netherton Infant School was successful in completing the Kirklees SACRE Award and have been presented with those awards in the RE network. We keep a close eye on the data, which tells us about the degree to which children in schools are engaging with RE, and that picture is variable across the schools, and my colleagues in their professional capacities can speak to that data more intelligently than I can. So we're very grateful to Kirklees for your continuing commitment to fund the work of SACRE. We believe SACRE plays an essential part in enabling RE to be delivered well within our schools, and that feeds in both to community and cohesion, in teaching children to understand and practice empathy for people who are different for them, but also in terms of children's capacity for imagination and exploring the world we live in. We believe that RE is essential. And my colleagues, Ian Ross, who is our professional advisor, and Emma Brayford, who is more clued up about RE than I will ever be, will be happy to amplify anything that I have said and help respond to questions.
Thank you. So, would you like to say some words, Ian, or shall I move on to questions?
Well, I usually preface this by saying, of all the subjects within the national curriculum, with all the subjects that schools have to teach, RE is not part of the national curriculum, it's locally determined, and it's actually the only subject that any council has any kind of control over, because it is locally determined through its SACRE board. And we are really pleased with the way that the syllabus has been adopted by all schools within the local authority, including our academies. We are really pleased that the academies and the academy trusts within the local authority have mostly, I would say, all adopted the local agreed syllabus. So that's really good, because then there's cohesion across the RE, across the borough. The RE syllabus is kind of quite unique this time. It's actually shared between 4 local authorities in West Yorkshire. We missed out on getting Wakefield part of us, but never mind, we'll try them next time. And again, that builds that sort of bigger picture of West Yorkshire as a whole, but it also means that we have some economies of scale with having 4 local authorities working together. So I'm very happy to take any questions, but there are a couple of things that as SACRE we have to recommend to council. And those recommendations are, as per usual, we always have this in, to review the funding for SACRE. We are recommended by the DFE to receive 2% of the CSSB, and I think we are very close to that. In fact, I think we might even be over that, but I won't say any more about that. We also ask council to look at helping us to review our SACRE membership. We have to be representative of the local area. Our constitution is based around census figures, so obviously part of our representation is faith members, and faith members are mostly Christian on the board, but we do have quite a few vacancies for Muslim representation. So again, that's where we would like to sort of target some support in terms of encouraging Muslim representation. Obviously, we'd like you to accept our report and carefully consider it. We also want you to sort of give us permission, really, to investigate with Emma Brayford and the senior and the secondary learning partners the position for RE for non-examining students at Key Stage 4, which is a kind of a worry for us, because I think the recent data, although it's not very accurate, looks to me like there's 70% of the population of Key Stage 4 that don't take an examined GCSE course, which could imply that they actually don't receive their statutory entitlement for RE at Key Stage 4. And finally, and I think this is kind of really the most important one in our day and age at the moment, is to investigate how SACRE can work effectively with the communities team to look at community cohesion and be an active member in that community cohesion from an RE perspective, so that the children and young people of Kirklees grow up knowing about other people, working with other people and playing with other people. So, any questions?
Thank you, Ian. Yeah, that's really comprehensive, and the report was really comprehensive. I think you've sort of covered one of the questions I had, which was around that whole community cohesion, because I think religious education does play a really pivotal role. And I'd be quite interested to know what sort of efforts, I know you've mentioned about trying to get Muslim leaders onto your board, but other religious groups, what kind of work are you doing to try and reach out and to develop that inclusivity?
We work with the Faith and Belief Forum for both North Kirklees and South Kirklees. Quite a few people, well, a couple, certainly at least 2 people are represented here who are on that. Our other faith representation is quite strong at the moment. We have Jewish, Sikh and Hindu representation, as well as Baha'i and Humanist as a non-religious world belief. We work with the Faith and Belief Forum to sort of try and encourage other people to join us. And we do have some really good successful stories in terms of community cohesion. We run an online interfaith conference with primary pupils mostly, though we're going to extend it probably to secondary next year. Our primary pupils took part in an autumn festivals online event for interfaith in November. And I think on the screen we had up to 2,000 children taking part in a question and answer session with faith representatives from various, faith and belief representatives, should I say, from various different organisations. Now, obviously, that is a one event, but actually it really needs to be a continuous, taking part in community events, taking part, getting community members to come into schools to share their lived experience. I can never remember the quote properly, but it's about sort of, understanding is the key to education and the key to community cohesion.
Thank you, Ian. Any questions from the panellists? Councillor Riley.
Thank you. Just to say, I found it very interesting reading your reports. I am interested, however, about the actual syllabus and how the syllabus and the way it's taught, so that, for example, if it is a religious school, that other religions are then equally covered, and also for children who, where there is no religion at all as well.
Thank you. That's a really good question. And that's one of the reasons why this time when we have looked at the syllabus, we have taken away really a more traditional religious studies approach, which was learning chunks of facts about different religions. And we've gone down these 6 conceptual pathways instead. And those 6 conceptual pathways, which come from the Big Ideas project from Exeter, are inclusive of all faiths and people of no faith. And what we do is we recommend then for particular units of work at Key Stage 1 and then Lower Key Stage 2 and Upper Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4. These are the faiths or beliefs that you can perhaps look at in this. These are the best examples that proves this concept. And so that there's a gradual building up of knowledge and understanding about a range of faiths and beliefs, both in our area but also globally.
Thank you. Further questions?
Can I also ask how the syllabus addresses inequality and how it leads to community cohesion? And you also talked about co-production as well. Thank you.
Yes. It's in terms of equality and because we've worked with 4 local authorities, we have had a huge range of worldviews and input into that. And we've tried to encapsulate that in our content that could be taught through the syllabus. That part of that is really about making sure that everybody who is representative of the local authorities is represented within the syllabus, so there's that equality spread across there. One of the key drivers of the curriculum is that we have this lived experience, and that children meet people of faith and people of non-faith, so that they understand the wide diversity that is around them. And we've previously worked with the communities to do a lot of work around sort of quality assuring visitors to come into schools, to work with schools. We've passed a lot of that work on now to an organisation called the RE Hubs, who are a national organisation, because obviously we're finding it very difficult to approach anybody within the council because of restructuring of departments and things like that. Our contacts that we used to use have been moved on to other jobs, and I know Councillor McKirker is kind of quite like a dog with a bone with this.
Thanks, Ian. Any further questions from the panellists online? No? In that case, I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank Ian, Emma and Mark for coming in and presenting and taking questions. Thank you. So I'll move on to item number 8, which is Education, Health and Care Plans, EHCPs and Overview. So we've got Joanne Saunders and Michelle Lister with us. So I think Michelle is going to present. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair. So I'm taking the assumption that you've had the opportunity to read the report, which provides an insight into national and local challenges relating to education and health and care plans. Kirklees is passionate about making a difference for our children and young people with additional needs, and our inclusive ambitions are set out in our big plan. And our big plan is our SEND transformation plan. And within that plan, it also includes performance of our initial assessment for an EHCP and final plan compliance. I think it's really important to say we absolutely recognise the performance challenges that have built up, and we have taken a number of actions to address these, and that has really been around a partnership approach, including partners from health, PCAN, our parent farmers and other partners. We know that it's a national issue. It's a national issue for all local authorities, not just Kirklees, and we do recognise how difficult this is for our families of Kirklees and the amount of patience that they have had while we continue to make improvements across the system. I think along with improving compliance, it's been really important for us to focus on quality, as we want our children and young people to receive the right support to achieve their aspirations. It's also important to say the SENDAT team are also working really hard to support the new cluster arrangements to ensure that children and young people get the right support as early as possible. And I understand that a report on the cluster arrangements is coming and will be presented at the next Scrutiny meeting. I'd also like to take this opportunity to offer for Scrutiny to be able to meet the SENDAT team, and I'd be more than happy to make those arrangements for you. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And the panel would welcome that opportunity, and it's part of our work programme. And I'm a firm believer, as chair, that visits and meeting teams is probably the best way of really stepping into your world and addressing some of the challenges and working together to support each other to do that. So it's often time that's the constraint, isn't it? So thank you for that. So over to the panellists. Have we got any questions, comments? Councillor Riley?
Thank you. Again, a very interesting report, and lots of challenges. Clearly, lots of challenges. In terms of going forward to the future, is it likely that the pattern will be that more of the SEND children will go to mainstream schools? Is that the sort of trajectory that we're working towards? And is that to do with funding?
It's about making sure that youngsters are included and can thrive in the right environment. So number one, it's not about money. We need to make sure we've got enough provision of the right provision. So when you think about this cohort of youngsters, we're currently maintaining around about 4,800 children and young people with an EHCP. There are a significant larger cohort at SEN support, so those that don't have an EHCP. And if you compare where those youngsters are educated in Kirklees to some of the national figures, and the government publish it's the comes of a survey that all local authorities have to complete. It's called the SEN2 return. If you compare, we're just about to complete that for 2024, so it reports a year in retrospect. Our schools do an amazing job in terms of including youngsters. So wherever possible, you want what you want for any child. You want them to be able to attend their local school with their peers, to be visible in communities, to be happy and thriving, and for us to make reasonable adjustments so that that can happen. So it's not mainstream or special. Some youngsters do need that additional support. We have been investing in creating additional resource provisions which sit alongside, they're part of mainstream schools but with some specialist teaching wrapped around that. And in some instances, youngsters need independent provision, but we are looking at a cohort right from the early years, right the way through to age 25. But yes, we need to, part of every local authority and their high needs block, part of the challenges, do we have sufficient funding versus the costs of placements? And we're always looking for a sustainable approach. That's the targets that we've been set with the safety valve, but we have to consider funding. It says so in the legislative arrangements, but our priority is to get it right first time for youngsters and make sure they're educated in suitable provision. So we would never make a decision about a youngster can't have the right place because we, it's not financially driven. We do the part of the work of the clusters, and as Michelle said, we'll bring some more detail about how that's going. But part of that is about creating support, school-to-school support. So we have lots of expertise in our schools, but also in the learning service, in specialist outreach teaching, in educational psychology, and it's how can we work as a team to meet the needs of our youngsters, because these are our youngsters. So, and as Michelle said, it's about a good quality plan will mean that we can get it right. But there are lots and lots of challenges, wider than Kirklees, but we're experiencing them in Kirklees. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor McKirker.
I just wondered, obviously the report references the understandable anticipated increased pressure because you're working so hard to get EHCPs completed, but obviously there's an implication that EHCP then sort of says what then needs providing. I just wondered how you are approaching trying to mitigate those pressures, and obviously I'm presuming that will involve some third party working. Are we happy that the third parties are able to meet those pressures? I'm speaking from personal experience of some casework where the third party provider hasn't been able to offer what the AHCP was saying was needed. So.
Thank you. Yeah, we have recruited some, as you said, some third party casework writers to do the plans, and you will see from the report what we've taken sort of a two-pronged approach. So the case writers have absolutely been looking at those plans where children and families have been waiting far too long for their EHCP, so they have concentrated on that. We have a team manager who's absolutely overseeing that piece of work, so we have absolutely every confidence in those plan writers. We did recruit some, didn't really work out, so we are absolutely we have the ones that we have got at the moment, we do know they are absolutely doing a good job. So what I'm trying to say is we have got that robust sort of governance and that line management around those workers, so they are sort of being performance managed in terms of the plans and the quality is coming out.
Sorry, that sounds great. I don't think I was clear in what I was asking. So I'm asking the fact that we're bringing the HCP back within the sort of timescales is great, and I think whatever you're doing for that is obviously working. It was more the consequence of that is obviously that there is then a pressure on actually providing what it says in the EHCPs. And are we Are we prepared for that? Because we're bringing on more plans than we were. And often those young people have been waiting for that support a long time. Are we able to actually provide the support we're saying that they need?
Yeah, apologies, Councillor. Yes, we are. You'll see from the report that we have absolutely reviewed the team. So we put a new model of working in from last September. Obviously, that is quite new. We knew what we knew at that point in time, but what we have, as I've just said, we have put in team managers to lead on specific areas. So we have sort of the north and south. We have a team that really does oversee sort of the tribunals, and we also have a team that oversees the compliance. I think Joe's wanted to come in. Thank you.
I think you're right. So there's lots of myths about things. So the SEND assessment and commissioning team, we're just about to rename those to the EHCP team, because what they do absolutely is coordinate professionals. So we're very much reliant on a whole heap of professionals, whether that be speech and language therapy, educational psychology. Michelle's been leading our quality and compliance, and that has really needed that whole host of professionals to understand we've got to be coordinated. We know that there are pressures on recruiting educational psychologists. It's a national issue. Same applies for things like speech and language therapy. You then write the report, and then obviously if there's some specific interventions required, that also can be putting pressure on a pressurised system. I think that is been a big driver as to how can we support early, how can we identify need, how can we wrap support round in the here and now, because the planning itself is not, magic doesn't happen just because you're in receipt of a plan. It's really good in terms of coordinating that support and being able to measure against it for that youngster. What can we do whilst that plan is in development? Those youngsters are receiving education, and it's also what happens outside of education as well. But I think the work that Michelle and the team have done has been absolutely to take everything back to basics, because it's really important we build a sustainable system. Can't underestimate either the work of our schools. Our schools and our school Senkos have been exceptionally patient, but they've also been challenging, but also incredibly supportive. And I know just how hard they are working to support this need for our youngsters. So yeah, like you say, we secure the EHCP. That in turn brings some additional pressure because each child's entitled to an annual review. So 4,800 annual reviews. We know that there is work to do on those. It's absolutely in view. I think that's the key difference. There is nothing that isn't in view at this moment in time, but do recognise you solve one issue, it creates some pressures elsewhere. I do think we have an approach of the things that we can control, but also we're sharing that ambition with key partners like the ICB. How best do we commission? So making sure we've got enough of what is needed by our youngsters. Still lots to do, but on the right direction. Thanks.
Thank you, Joe and Michelle. Councillor McKirkey, follow up.
Sorry, and it was just to ask about how you are, or how the parent voice is included in the process. So, and again, I'm not making this about specific cases, but I have had some people say that they've had commissioning meetings that weren't recorded, and then they felt that they couldn't then pursue what was promised in the meeting, that the process, although they had an EHCP, it then hadn't been followed through the way they'd wanted. So I just wondered how, in general terms, how you try and incorporate and involve the parent voice.
Thank you. Yeah, I think firstly, just in terms of the wider parent voice, we have PCAM, who's been on this journey and still is on the journey with us. Joe mentions the Quality Compliance Group. PCAN work with us on that. They've been part of sort of the recruitment for the team as well. Communication with parents, we are working really hard to improve that. We know that's been absolutely a challenge for us. We know that it is still a challenge. We do actively listen to parents, so we're making a much more conscious effort now to pick up the telephone. We've done some things around sort of communication with getting through to the team. So we have actively KD1 are helping us with that in terms of putting calls through. So we've really looked and overhauled that system. It is one of the challenges we know that we need to do much more work on.
Thanks. I'd just add to that. So parent, it should be co-produced. Everything we do should be co-produced, and it's a really, it's a real challenge in terms of some of the capacity issues we've had. But I really want to emphasise, people come to me, parents come to me. We want them to have a much better experience than perhaps they have been experienced. That doesn't mean to say we can always agree, but it is about giving parents rights, and wherever possible, we want consensus, but parents are entitled to disagree with us, and that's absolutely, we need to afford them that. We'll always meet with parent and carers. I will always, myself, the DCS, I know some of our portfolio holders have met with parents. It is really, it can be really tricky. We've also got the Kirklees Information and Advice Service, which is a statutory function. They're very good at advocating for parents and young people. I think in terms of it's not just the support of our Parent Carer Forum. They're rather challenging as well for all the right reasons. They make sure that they're feeding back what experience is like for parents when nobody answers the phone, nobody answers an email. What I would say is, though, we have been brave in the respect of we have invested in a new IT system. I think it explains that in the report. We made a huge channel shift. It was no mean feat to shift from one system to another. What that will do, we're rolling out other aspects of it. It has a parent and a partner portal, and that will be much more intuitive, whereby which instead of needing to seek an update by phoning in or emailing in, you'll be able to log in and see the progress made. We have not yet been able to implement that fully, but it's part of a really measured plan. So we're trying to do things at the right time in the right order. That will make a step change, and it should help the team then to be able to do more individual casework as well. So there is a little bit of holding our nerve, but for all the right reasons, and we can't emphasise enough really just how much it matters to us about the experience of parents, but recognising it's not being where we want it to be.
Thank you. And I mean, that just to briefly come back on the IT system, that sounds like it will be a real positive. Certainly some of the frustrations come from just not knowing what's been done, but also it would do things like, I presume, because you can see step by step what's been covered and what's been recorded, it will highlight much quicker if, for example, a meeting hasn't been minuted. Or some actions have not been recorded, that in terms of being able to hold the service to account as well, that system hopefully will allow parents to feel a bit more empowered. So, thank you.
Thank you both. The only comment that I'd really like to make was obviously you work in a really challenging environment, and nationally, I think, you know, with the rise of EHCPs, you have got a lot of challenges. And from the report, it's really apparent the level of work that you're doing in partnership and, you know, a systems-based approach, which you've highlighted in some of the answers to the questions. It's great to see, and particularly the focus that you've got on quality. Sometimes I think when quantity takes over and you're under that pressure, it's good to see in that report that there still is that focus around quality. So I just want to, if there's no other questions, just want to say thank you to Joe and to Michelle. I had to double check. Thank you for that report. So if we could move on to the next agenda item, which is item number 5, review of children's residential homes and fostering provision. So we've got Joel Hannah online, and we've got Anna Gladhill. No, Anna's not here. So
sorry,
Joe will give the report. So over to you, Joel.
Excuse me, I've got a terrible cough, so opportune moment to cough. Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm presenting on behalf of myself and the Head of Service responsible for fostering on this report, and really to give an overview of where we are in relation to accommodation for children that are looked after and in our care. And just to say that the majority of children that we care for are living within family settings, such as foster carers, with fostering families and foster carers, or with kinship connected carers, so people known to them. We have a small number of children that live in residential small group home living arrangements, because that's being assessed as right for them. And essentially, the efforts of our services are to make sure that we've got appropriate accommodation to meet the needs of children that are in our care and move within our care, and those that we anticipate that might need it. And that effort is set within a national context of a recognised by government deficient resource capacity for children's placements across the country. So many of you may have seen that there's both local and national campaigns to increase the number of foster carers in the country, and as well as nationally, regionally, and sub-regionally, and then locally. Each local authority makes efforts to increase the number of foster carers that are available to support children that require alternative homes away from family for whatever reason. So the report sets out our position in regards to recruiting foster carers. It identifies some of the efforts that we make to support attracting foster carers to Kirklees. We typically recruit foster carers within Kirklees. There may be a few in neighbouring authorities that for whatever reason choose to care for children for another local authority, so join another local authority's fostering service, and typically that might be because they're employed by the host authority's local authority. So we have a number of campaigns at any one time, and the efforts to support raising the awareness and recruitment for fostering is driven through the fostering service. And there is a small team that support recruitment efforts through leafleting, raising the profile, raising the visibility of fostering and the need for it, as well as advertising and targeted campaigns, and you'll see those throughout. Recently, through our Kirklees parenting board arrangements, we've also been discussing the opportunities to have a more visible advertising campaign for fostering within some of our council fleet of vehicles. So you may see an increase in the number of vehicles around Kirklees that may say homes and neighbourhoods, but also may say foster for Kirklees, and give details of that. So the national context is one that we share in short. In terms of residential, I should also say that the other parallel there for both residential and fostering is that as well as providing the local authority providing foster carers and indeed our own children's residential homes, we also commission foster placements from independent fostering agencies, and there are a number of different fostering agencies around the country that provide services and resources to local authorities and foster carers to local authorities. And we commission those individual placements through a framework that we have set out with other local authorities to engage specific fostering services. That's known as the White Rose Framework, and typically what we'll have is fostering agencies join that framework and then become available so that when we're in need, if we can't force internal foster carers for a young person or the needs are such that we haven't got the resource to meet that young person's individual needs, then we'd go out to independent fostering services to see if they can match children and young people. And that's the same for our residential resource. We have a small number of children's homes in the authority that are run by the authority. Children's homes are set out in and regulated by Ofsted, the Inspector for Children's Services, also Education and Children's Services. And those 6 homes that we have are subject to the same inspection regime and regulations and standards that independent homes are bound by also. Currently, are at the point of submitting the report that I did for this panel. We had 34 young people living in externally commissioned provision, and we had 16 living in our own provision. We've had a fairly static number of young people that require residential care, and it's true to say that there are some young people that are in residential care are living in small group living homes because actually we've been unable to identify fostering placements for them, so they might be suited to living in small family arrangements, though at the time of their specific need we were unable to identify that, and that can then mean that a young person lives in a group living home, maybe for a short period of time whilst we find a foster placement, or maybe that's where they settle and that becomes right for them. So on that basis of that ratio, we have sought to expand our residential offer over the past 2 years, and we did open a 6th children home last year, which is yet to be assessed by Ofsted, so it's not yet got a judgment as to its standard, but it's functioning and providing a home for three children at the moment, and it is a very settled and stable home, and you know, actually spent some time there recently, and it's providing a really good, stable environment for those children. So we're awaiting our inspection of that home, which will be before the end of March. So in terms of our efforts to expand and develop our residential offer, it's twofold. One is to refurbish some of our existing homes. They've been children's homes for a long period of time, and some of them are still in our plan for refurbishment, awaiting their refurbishment, and we'll be doing that shortly with one of our homes, because the children and young people that live there are moving on as is anticipated within their own individual plans, and that means that we'll have an opportunity while that home is awaiting new people to be identified and to move into it. We'll have an opportunity with our building services to refurbish it. So we're setting out those plans at the moment. I think that's the highlights of the report. Actually, I don't know if there are any questions that the panel has.
Thank you, Joel. Over to the panellists. Do we have any questions? Councillor Riley.
Thanks, Joel, and yeah, thanks for all the great work that you do with young people with fostering and residential homes. Yeah, the report was very interesting. I'm just reading a little bit here about nationally the number of foster carers has fallen to a 10-year low. Does that include foster carers that are with independent agencies, or are we talking sort of local authorities here? And has there been a shift over to the independent agencies?
My understanding is in the last thorough report on this was done through Josh McAllister's review of children's social care, and separate to that there was a detailed report in regards to what's referred to as the market, for placements. They're terms that we try not to use in Kirklees because they detach some of the significance of providing homes for children to grow up and have their childhoods in. But that Competitive Markets Authority report identified not a specific shift between local authority and national, but overall registered placements. And I suppose the important, or the metric there, is that all fostering services are registered, so they have to be registered with the inspectorate. Those that sit within local authorities are inspected under the full children's services inspection processes. So that's the way that their foster numbers are identified. They're individual registered foster placements, and the 10-year low number, the national decrease, has been across the piece. And there's been there was a slight disruption to that in 2020, 2021, following COVID, and actually some static movement, but it appears that there are more people leaving fostering than joining fostering. And the Department for Education in government is working with all local authorities to see how they can address this nationally through a programme of supporting local authorities coming together and having regionalised campaigns, because as each individual fostering agency is registered, as are local authorities individually, we end up with a situation where that marketplace ends up competing for foster foster carers. And I think also set out in Anna's report, amongst the same paragraph that you're referring to, will be the costs associated to a local authority. So typically, well, the average costs have obviously increased. Foster carers are remunerated for the care that they provide and the work that they do, and we do recognise it as work. They are providing some professional care in when it's for children that are outside of their own family, and those foster carers are remunerated through meeting all the costs associated with caring for a child, but also receive a payment, a skills level payment, and that typically will enable somebody to consider actually fostering as an option, as an alternative to work, and enable them to foster. When we engage independent fostering agencies, we also pay an agency fee. So the typical cost to any local authority is around double the cost of a local authority's own fostering caring service, because you pay an agency fee. So there is a drive from local authorities to increase the number of local authority foster carers, and what we try to avoid is competing with different skill levels payments or different incentives and reward mechanisms by creating some form of universality to fostering for local authorities.
Thank you, Joel. Councillor McKirker.
Hi, thanks for the report, Joel. I just wondered, with regards to the residential homes, firstly, obviously you said that you are working hard to aim to get an improved judgment on the next inspection cycle. Just how confident you are that the changes have been made that will bring the homes up to where they need to be. And perhaps secondly to that, I know we've heard from other parts of the service about changes that have been about sharing good practice, and I just wondered whether that was something that you used within the residential home sector between the people who work there. So.
Yeah, absolutely, and I suppose that first of all, I have put in the report there the link to the inspection, Ofsted inspection website, their open access reports, and people can access those, and the unique numbers are there for the homes. So in two parts of the question, as I understood them. One is, how confident am I in that we will improve the judgments? I suppose what I did in laying out the table there was to show that we are making improvement, and that there is an overall improvement. It ebbs and flows because some that homes go through very different cycles depending on a number of factors. They, caring for group living for up to 4 children and young people who are typically unrelated, living together, and that balance and that mix of young people is an extremely careful match, living in a group and shared environment. And we've concentrated very much on supporting the recruitment and skill base of our residential practitioners. So over the past couple of years, we've redesigned the job role. We've created a progression route for our residential staff, and enhanced the leadership capacity across that service. That's in order to achieve the second point that you made in relation to sharing and that cross-fertilisation of good practice, knowing what you do well and making sure that you replicate and emulate that in other settings. And that's a slower process because the culture in the residential homes has been that they are individual homes, autonomously and individually stood. We have moved staff around over the past, more so over the past year, and currently, like the the independent sector in relation to fostering, there are a number of independent private homes that operate, and a significant number actually within our region, that provide homes for children and young people. And one of the things that has done is it's caused some real competition with employing staff that choose to work in residential settings. And we've had around, for the past year, around the equivalent of one full home of staffing vacancies across that our residential sector, which is a real challenge for us. So we're constantly recruiting. Fortunately, we've recently undertaken a recruitment exercise internally with some very skilled staff who have worked in our family time team, providing family support and work with children and young people. So we've deployed some of those into our children's homes, which is seeing some benefit and increase. And it's also given us an opportunity to move some staff around the homes and share good practice. So I am hopeful that we'll see. I'm always hopeful that we'll retain our good and outstanding judgments, but there can be disruption that causes those to be considered differently at the time. But I am hopeful that we'll retain those judgments, and we're due to be inspected. I think we'll get 4 visits. They're unannounced. I think we'll get 4 visits before the end of this financial year, so the end of March. One will be a full inspection of our currently outstanding home, and I would like to see that retained. And from the monthly reports that I receive on the home and the visits that I do, and I visit all the homes monthly, I don't see a reason why that won't stand. And equally, the registration visit, the first inspection of our newly opened home, I would hope that we'd see a really positive appraisal of that. As I say, it's a very settled home, providing a really loving and warm environment for 3 young people that are, I think, thriving there. The 2 required improvement judgments that we currently have out of the 6, which are our lowest grades, if you like, in terms of that ranking, they won't be re-inspected, they will be monitored. So we won't get revised judgments for those for some time. But as you can see from the report, one of them, that judgment was given in October. So there's some time since that was that was inspected and found to be that, and there have been specific improvements made to the areas that were identified in that report. So I would hope that the monitoring visit indicates that it's in the right direction. And equally, the other home that received that judgment in August, my assessment is that home is on a trajectory and if you look at the previous inspection from the year previous, that indicates that trajectory is holding, and that is actually a home that we're aiming to have refurbished as well. So some of the judgments, if you read the full reports, you'll see give an indication of things that are associated with the homes that aren't just about the practice. They might be the physical location of the home or the fabric of the home. And we have done some extensive work with our building services, and we work really closely with them and have full support from building services on addressing any kind of physical issues in relation to the building. So hopeful.
Thank you. Thank you, Joel. So if there's no further questions, my only comment is that, yeah, the panel have actually done a visit to Kirklees Fostering Network, which was really useful, and it was good to meet foster carers firsthand and learn of some of the challenges. So I just want to say thank you, Joel and the team, for that presentation. So if there's no further questions, we can move on to item number 10, which is the performance data, the verbal update on highlights. And I think we've got Vicky Metheringham on the line who's going to take us through that. So it's over to you, Vicky.
Thank you. Yeah, just some of the key performance highlights then. Just wanted to reflect on the high caseloads that we're currently experiencing for our social work practitioners and our personal advisors at the moment, and some of that high caseload and some of the vacancies is having an impact on some of the reporting of data. So some of the data that's presented to panel members is worse than the actual real position is. Just wanted to provide a little bit of assurance really in terms of social workers and PAs caseloads, that we do have weekly oversight of those caseloads. We ensure that we're touching base with practitioners, that they're being offered consistent support from a manager that they've got a good relationship with, checking in that children are being seen regularly and that we're managing risk appropriately. We know that we've got more vacancies that we want, and in Kirklees we've got a range of opportunities to bring new social workers in. We're confident that if no more workers leave us, that our vacancy situation by late summer will be much improved, but that doesn't take away how difficult the current situation is for our practitioners. We in Kirklees we have frontline social workers, so at the minute we've got 10 social workers sat in the teams who will move into permanent social work posts later on this year. We've met with the frontline practitioners and they're really pleased and really enjoying their experiences in Kirklees, which is quite different to how it has been historically. They all are indicating they want to stay here and are thoroughly enjoying their experience. We know that we've got a large number of social work students. Many of those students will join us once they qualify later this year. And we also have apprenticeships and step up to social work students too. So there is an ongoing effort to bring in new practitioners, and we're doing a little bit of thinking about where might some of our cases sit, improving our recruitment of new practitioners, modernising it really to align with some of the fantastic work that we're doing in Kirklees in our efforts to bring more practitioners in. But like I say, once those posts are filled, vacancies will absolutely look a little bit better. Just wanted to touch on a couple of data issues, in particular with regard to looked after children and the data there, because obviously when you see that social workers have got high caseloads, there's a fear that perhaps children might then be impacted adversely. We keep a really close eye on all the important things to us, making sure that children's plans are reviewed, that they're seen frequently, that children in care, we're optimising their health opportunities. And we know that in particular the data regarding dental checks for some of our looked after children looks significantly lower than actually the performance is. Through our Kirklees Parenting Board and the priority that supports our children in care and care leavers to grow up and be healthy and have access to support which maximises their physical and emotional well-being. We've harnessed a really positive relationship with the designated nurse for safeguarding children, and there's an opportunity now for us to have an established multi-agency data performance meeting so that we're confident that the performance that we see mirrors the performance that our designated nurse holds. Once we've established that meeting, it will be a much more confident position with regard to our data. We just wanted to assure panel members and councillors really that the dental checks for looked after children is currently reported at 90%. So 90% of children in care have seen a dentist within the last year. The issue appears to be one of data. Similarly, just wanted to touch base on our performance regarding assessments. So when social workers have assessments to complete of children, they need to be completed in 45 days, and our performance isn't where we want it to be. A couple of things impacting on that really is caseloads and vacancies, but also we've identified some children's cases that will benefit from being closed because families aren't in agreement for the assessment to continue. So there's a piece of work that we're going to do to focus on children's cases so that we can reduce open caseloads for our practitioners. We know that children, when children's needs escalate to a child protection plan, that assessments are completed in a speedy way. It's less clear for children in need as to the time that's given to those assessments, but we have got focused work surrounding that, and we've just established a child in need review panel to oversee some of those children's cases that can move to closure. Conscious that the number of children at risk of exploitation increased in November, and I just wanted again to provide some assurance that that rise is associated to our continued ambition to make sure that partners and ourselves share intelligence information. There's been a deliberate intention to make sure that when children are at risk of exploitation, that those risks are recognised, and those children's plans are considered at a weekly exploitation screening panel, which offers some assurance really about the quality of those plans, the interventions that are offered, and making sure that if there's other services that need to be provided to children, that we do that in a timely way. Just touching on child protection plans, there's been a small rise in the number of children who've been on a child protection plan in the previous 2 years. The number relates to a small number of children. What we're seeing is that because we're seeing a lower number of new plans, that shows our performance negatively. So, for example, in November 24, 54 children started a child protection plan, of which 13 children had previously been on a plan, and that percentage was one of 12%. The year before, we saw 72 children starting on a plan, and 12 children had previously been on a plan, but the performance reported was stronger because of the higher number of plans. We do keep a really close eye on children that have been on a repeat plan, and we've got a planned deep dive in March to address this performance and make sure we've got a really tight grip and understanding about the reasons that children are on a repeat plan, because we don't want any family or child to unnecessarily experience repeat plans unnecessarily. In terms of visits to children that are on a child protection plan, again, we oversee through our practice supervisor and team manager oversight a whole range of performance measures, which includes visits to children. I'm aware that the data that we've seen suggests that the visits to children on a child protection plan in 15 days has dropped. Our assurance of that suggests it hasn't dropped. It's just that we've not recorded the visit on the child's file, and if it's not recorded on the child's file, the data then doesn't pull through. So just a little bit of confidence around that area. Conscious that the data also suggests that care leavers seen within 8 weeks has dropped, as well as the number of care leavers showing as having an updated pathway plan. We know that the numbers of care leavers that we work with have increased significantly. In particular, again, deliberate drive to increase the number of care leavers aged 21 and 25 to access support. And we've seen a growing number of former unaccompanied asylum-seeking children also reaching out to the service, and so that has led to an increase of caseloads for personal advisors. Again, we keep a close eye on their caseloads and make sure that they are provided with the support that they need. Probably fair to say that because the contacts drop, that's not necessarily that we're not seeing those care leavers. We have 2 hubs, number 11 and number 12. Number 11 is in Huddersfield, number 12 at Dewsbury. These hubs, honestly, now they've been transformed. If you pop in at any time, care leavers pop in for a drink, pop in for a chat with the PA. We run and facilitate a range of activities that are really well used by care leavers. So whilst our contact might have looked like it's dropped in terms of the PA's contact with the care leaver, actually the reality is they're seeing more of the PA through the enhanced offer through the hubs. Just a little bit in terms of the pathway plan. We are reviewing pathway plans. We knew well before Ofsted came that pathway plans quality wasn't where we wanted it to be, and so we've introduced a new My Pathway plan, which are the principles being that My Pathway plan's done alongside a care leaver so that it's understood and recognised and owned by young people. That is impacting on the completion rate, and we keep running and rolling out training to social work practitioners across the service as we strive to see improvement, and the quality of those plans are improving without a doubt. With regard to the rise in the waiting list for CAMS in November, we're confident that there has been a small rise, but it's within the normal demand fluctuations, and we don't anticipate this being an ongoing trend. Just in terms of the percentage of return interviews that had, the offer had dropped by 10%, we think this is, we know this is about the fact that a small but significant number of young people often have multiple episodes of missing, meaning that we only offer 1 return interview, so that independent return interview covers all the episodes, which will impact on the data. The other issue that will impact on the data is that we're constantly reviewing performance, making sure that the quality of the interview is as we want it to be. So that will also impact on the lower recorded performance too. That's probably it in terms of my highlights for performance for this time.
Thank you, Vicky, for that. So, any questions? Councillor McKay.
Thank you for that summation, Vicky. That was really useful. It was only just a quick follow-up. When you referred to the care leavers, and obviously the fact that recorded contact in the last 8 weeks isn't necessarily reflective of their actual contact with the service. I just wondered if the hubs at number 11 and number 12, if there is any record made of who is accessing them and how they're being used, only to prevent anyone kind of slipping through the net of us going, well, an 8-week mark is not a helpful measure, which I fully understand. And we think that everyone is accessing the hubs who needs to, but do we have some way of kind of checking that?
Joe?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just in relation to the hubs, we've over the past, I think probably 8 months, 8 months would see the difference. Over the past 8 months, we've really put a lot of emphasis on to increasing the footfall and the understanding and the availability of services at the hubs, as well as some of the offers that we're making at, there. We've seen an increased number of young people accessing and dropping in and spending time in number 11, which is in Huddersfield. A smaller number still in relation to the hub that we have in Dewsbury. And we've also started to work with Fresh Futures, and in relation to some of the support that they offer young adults in Kirklees, specifically around social isolation and loneliness, because those are priorities for us to put services in place for care experienced young adults of any age, actually, and that's that partnerships means that we've got young people able to drop in and work and meet other young people, or young adults at their hubs as well. So we're currently working on how we map the network of support that we offer. In terms of measuring footfall, one of the things that we're trying to do to identify who's coming into the hubs is asking young people and young adults that come there to sign in. They're all met and greeted, and if you go down to the hubs, you'll see the environments are relaxing. There's a kitchen, people go and have a drink, and can meet specific services that do drop-ins on different days. We're not yet at a position where we're capturing the names of everyone that's attending, because we've known that some people haven't signed in on some days, so we're working on that. But I suppose in answer to your question, yeah, we've got some assurance that we are. We've got a broad range of offers, as well as the case loads that Vicky referred to, and the individual contacts between a personal advisor and a young person who they're seeing and doing specific focused work on. We've got also a number now and increasing all the time, range of offers where young people can access support and services. It's about how we map that in, and that's one of the reasons why we want to review the measure of 8-week contact. Hope that makes sense.
It does. Thank you.
Thanks, Joel. All I'd really like to add is that the panel have had the opportunity to attend the hubs, and I think myself and Councillor McKirker did attend one of the practice learning days at Dewsbury Hub, and to see the setup, and you know, it is a great service, and the way that it's run with the opportunity. But I suppose there's still potential more work to be done to ensure that everybody does know how to access and makes use of it. So thank you. Any further questions? No? We're moving swiftly along. So I just want to say thank you, Vicky, for a really comprehensive update, and Joel as well for answering the questions. So I'd just like to move on to the next item on the agenda, which sorry, my apologies. I've missed out Joe. So Joe is going to give us an update on exclusions and performances. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead. I was thinking, we're doing well for time. Over to you, Joe. Sorry.
Thank you. Obviously, we've had a detailed report around EHC needs assessments. So just in terms of, as part of our Kirklees Futures and part of our ambitions is around reducing exclusions and suspensions, increasing attendance, and that's something we're working with our schools and settings really diligently on. I think we touched on this last time, but in November, we have seen a higher notification of youngsters that have been permanently excluded. So that brings our year-to-date, so our academic year-to-date, is at 21 young people, and that's representative of 0.3% of the population. Obviously, it's our ambition that we don't have any, it's because that we can get the right support at the right time. But if we just compare this with a similar position at last academic year, it was 0.5% of the population, and at 34 exclusions, it's moving in the right direction, and I think that's for a number of reasons. I think our schools are working incredibly hard to be inclusive. They're reaching out and seeking support from some of the support services that are available. So we have some exceptional colleagues in our Access to Education team who will work with both the family and the school to try and find alternatives. We have also introduced our inclusion multi-agency panel, where schools are able to refer in and ask for help and support. Also, parents are as well. There's a real multi-agency representation from our specialist outreach, our commissioning team, our learning partner for inclusion, our access to education colleagues, our designated clinical officer and our designated social care officer. And basically it's about how best we can offer help and support. It was something that we introduced back in September. There's been a huge take-up, people asking for help and support for youngsters. So I think that is starting to have a positive impact. Just in terms of when we look at November does tend to be, if you look backwards, we do tend to see a couple of spikes in the academic year. November is one. So it's not, it's a general sort of time in which you might see a peak in exclusion, but also January coming back in after Christmas. I think just to give you an idea about age range of youngsters, the largest group are year 10s, followed by year 9s and year 11s, and of course the whole system's really keen to wrap the right support around some of those older youngsters, because what happens to them in terms of moving post 16, it's really important that we're thinking not just about the here and now, but pathways beyond into year 12. So just one of the other things that we are trying to do, children with an EHCP, we have seen in November that there were a number with an EHCP that also received a permanent exclusion. I think in terms of, it comes back to some of the work that we are doing in the SEND assessment and commissioning team, our soon to be called EHCP team, where there is a notification from a school that should trigger an emergency annual review to make sure that there's a smooth transition into an alternative education placement. But yeah, that would be a preferred option rather than a permanent exclusion. So there is more work to do, but we've already done so much in terms of trying to join some of those services together. That's probably just some of the detail that we've looked at in the learning service and with our schools. So thank you.
Thank you, Jo. Any comments from the panellists or questions? Yeah, no, thank you. That was really comprehensive, and sorry for jumping ahead. Yeah, so now I can jump ahead. Moving on to item number 11, pre-decision scrutiny. So we don't have the cabinet members present today, but I just wondered if officers have got any update on anything that's affecting children's services coming on the horizon. Jo?
I think, Chair, there's one report going to Cabinet next week, and that's the annual determination of admission arrangements. So this is something that has to go every year. I think we did raise some awareness about this. There has been some engagement, but just in terms of there's an opportunity for the schools where the local authority is the admission authority, but also we are responsible for agreeing those coordinated schemes, because there are things like national offer days that we have to comply with in line with the admissions code. So that is due to go next week. I think that I'm right in saying that that report was published yesterday, and Councillor Pinnock will lead that next week.
Yeah, thank you for that, Jo. I think that report was shared this morning by Claire, so panellists will get an opportunity to have a look at that before it goes to Cabinet. Thank you.
Just one thing that you'll see in the summary of that report, there are some schools and some own admission authority schools have looked to make some changes to their admission number. I think this relates to something that's on the scrutiny agenda where we look at sufficiency. At the moment, the population is declining, and that's the reason. There's nothing other than we've got more places than we've got children, but I think the report explains that. But if there are any questions for children's scrutiny following that report being determined, please don't hesitate to get in contact. Thank you.
Thanks, Jo. Anything else from anyone else that's up and coming that can think of? No? No, so that's fine. Online, no questions, no. So moving on to item number 12. So feedback from panel members from Kirklees Parenting Board. So I had to send in apologies. I usually do attend the board, but I wasn't able to on this occasion. But I think we've got Joel online who is going to give us a quick overview from the meeting.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. I can just update the board that we that was held in January. The Kirklees Parenting Board runs every other month and works through a number of priorities that are set out in the Kirklees Parenting Strategy that is available online. The last board meeting in January focused on our health priorities and had conversations about actually a number of health matters relating to children looked after in care leavers, some of which were discussed earlier on in terms of the recording and reporting on dental checks, for example. It was a really positive meeting. Partnership's been extended now and includes representatives from Huddersfield University and Huddersfield College. And one of the links that was made and the benefits of having partners such as those at the board was that the services have now got in touch with our emotional health and well-being teams to see how we can support increasing access to counselling services, but because both of those institutions teach counselling and qualifications and have students, so some real fruit being born out of the range of partners at the parenting board. The other significant shift in the parenting board that was realised at the last meeting in January was that we welcomed two former children in care who are now care experienced adults as board members. There'll actually be three. The third young adult couldn't make that particular meeting, but is due to come to the next meeting, which is in March. So it was a positive board, good example of the partnership, sharing ideas and resources, creatively reviewing the progress being made on the priorities, and really valued the input, observations and lived experience of our care leavers who were able to provide direct feedback and engage in the conversations.
Thanks, Joel. Yeah, I'm sorry I missed the meeting, but I know from the previous meeting that I attended, one of the things that really struck me was the efforts that the board was making to really engage with young people, in particular using their type of language and really putting the young person at the heart of the conversation. So I think it's really great that you've got two members, two former members that are young care leavers on the board. So I look forward to meeting with them at the next meeting. So thanks for that update. So I just want to add to that as well in terms of health priorities. I don't know if I didn't mention earlier, but the panel are actually meeting in May with the health panel to look particularly at children's dentistry. And the final item on the agenda is the work programme and agenda plan. So in terms of that, I just again want to add that the panel had a joint meeting with Health and Adult Scrutiny panel, where we discussed in particular the immunisation programme affecting children. So we looked at RSV and influenza, I think. So that was that was something that we've covered off. The other thing that I attended was the youth engagement event, the YET Practice Learning Day, on the 10th of January in Dewsbury. So it was a really good opportunity to meet with that team and again look at some of the challenges that they face and the work that they do. Have there been any more updates or visits that the panellists have attended? No? Is there anything else you want to add?
I'll just advise that when panels have been on visits, they are feeding back to us, and we are including a summary in the work programme of all the visits, so everything is in there. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I think I did send an update on the report, so you can look at that in detail.
We did have the visit to Dewsbury when we met the social workers.
Yeah, that's
the one that you were
recorded. I
talking
think
about.
that was prior to the last meeting, the Children in Care visit to
Yeah.
the hub. Yeah, that's all in the work programme. It's being updated, so thank you for that. So I think that's everything, unless anybody's got any comments, questions, updates? No? So I just want to take the opportunity to thank panellists and officers for your work and your feedback, questions. And I draw the meeting to a close. Finish.